Hello and welcome back to the channel. In today's video I'll be sharing with you a sew along video of how I made this beautiful monostrap corset for my birthday shoot. So if this is something you like, please don't forget to hit on the subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and let's dive right into today's video. So to start, here is my pattern paper and I've gone ahead to mark out all my basic measurements I need for this pattern, which is my shoulder to bust line, which is 9 inches, my shoulder to under bust, which is 12 inches, and my shoulder to waistline, which is 17 inches. So after I'm done marking this, I'll go ahead to mark my shoulder divided by 2. From that point, I'll come down by 1 inch and I'll be drawing this to mark out my shoulder slope. The next step is to place and mark your chest line. To get your chest line is your bust circumference divided by 6 plus 1.5 inches. So mine is 7 inches and I'll make a mark at that point. Place my ruler and I'm going to draw out a straight line at this point. After I'm done marking that, I'll go ahead to place my tape and I'm going to mark my shoulder divided by 2. And from that point I'll go ahead to connect this all the way to the upper part of my shoulder. Now I'll divide this by 2 by folding my tape and I'll mark. At this point where I made that mark, I'll be coming out by ½ inch. And after I'm done marking that, here I'll mark my bust circumference divided by 4. Now I'll place my curved rule connecting that point to the midpoint of the armhole and to the upper part. So next, I'll go ahead to mark my dart intake. So I'll be marking my nipple to nipple divided by 2. My nipple to nipple is 7 inches divided by 2. I have 3.5 inches. I'm going to mark this all the way to the waistline of my pattern. And I'm going to go ahead to draw out a straight line and I'll be marking 1 inch dart intake on both sides. So after that, I'll just go ahead and connect. So if you're plus size, you'll be using 1.5 inches, or if you're a bit busty, you'll be using 1.5 inches. Mark it on the right side and mark it also on the left side. So after this, you go ahead to connect. From there, I'll connect from my bust down to my under bust. Go ahead to repeat this same process at the other side. So after I'm done connecting, I will be going up by 1.5 inches. So now this 1.5 inches is not a standard. It totally depends on where you want your cup to start. And if you're busty or you're on the plus size, you should be considering using 2 inches or 2.5, depending on what you want or more. So after this, I'll just go ahead to mark my dart intake of 1 inch on both sides, and I'll also go ahead to connect. For a plus size, you're going to be using 1.5 inches or more. This also depends on the size of your bust. Now, from my chest line, I went in by ½ inch and I'll connect this all the way to the upper part of my cup this way. Now I'll place my curved rule and I'll connect from that point all the way to my under bust, and this is what I have. After I'm done connecting, I'll be working on the other side. I'll mark my nipple to nipple divided by 2 plus half. My nipple to nipple is 7 inches divided by 2. I have 3.5 plus half, making it 4 inches. So I'll go ahead and connect this all the way to the under bust, and this is what I have. From here, I'll connect back to the armhole this way. So this is my cup B and I'll connect the upper part. Now what I'll do is to place my tape and make sure that what I have from the upper part of my cup to the under bust is the same, and I'll also check it at this part. You also want to check this, especially if you're a beginner, so that your cup will be meeting, so that you won't have the issue of when you're joining your cup, the center part will not be meeting at all. So if yours does not match, go ahead and readjust. So at this point, I'll mark my bust circumference divided by 4 and I will mark. After marking, I'll go ahead and measure the dart I have on the chest line. So for this pattern, I'll be using an inseam finishing, so I don't want to have too much gaping by the side. So I'll add 1 inch for my sewing allowance. Here, I'll mark my under bust circumference divided by 4, measure this dart intake, and I will replace it and add 1 inch for my sewing allowance. So I'm not making use of much sewing allowance here because I don't really need it, because I'm doing an inseam finishing for this dress. So here I'll mark my waist circumference divided by 4, measure the dart intake, and I'll replace, then go ahead to add my sewing allowance of 1 inch. So if you're not doing an inseam finishing, you can just go ahead to add more. So I don't like using much sewing allowance when I'm doing that. So after that, I'll just go ahead to connect my pattern from the upper part to the waistline of the dress. So I'm done drafting out the front pattern as easy as this, and I'll just go ahead to cut this out. And after cutting this out, I'll be using it to cut also the back pattern of the dress. So at this point, if you haven't yet subscribed to my YouTube channel, please don't forget to hit on the subscribe button. Give this video a thumbs up, and if you have a question, also leave it at the comment section. So if you're a returning subscriber to the channel, thank you for always supporting my channel. So I'll just go ahead and I will cut out this corset pattern. So after I'm done cutting out my corset pattern for the front, this is what I have. So now I'll go ahead and get a plain pattern paper, and what I'll do now is to mark the zipper allowance for the dress. For the zipper allowance, I'll be using 1.5 inches and I will mark. So after making those marks, I'll go ahead to place my curve drew and I'll draw out a straight line. After drawing out a straight line, I'll go ahead to place my pattern paper on the back pattern. So I'm going to make sure that it sits very well and it starts immediately after the zipper line. So before going ahead to trace this, I'll just go ahead to pin it. I'm happy that. And when you're placing it together, make sure that the dart line area meets. So after this, I'll just go ahead to trace out the shape I have for the front on the back pattern. Raise this part up and I'll be slanting down at this point. So the reason why I'll be going down by 1/2 inch or 0.7 at this point is because I don't want the zipper to pop up at that back side when you're putting on the dress. To get rid of the bulginess at the back, I'll mark 1/2 inch, then place my ruler and I'm going to extend it all the way up. After that, I'll just go ahead to cut out the zipper bulge, and this is what I have for the back pattern of the dress. So as you can see, it's very simple and it is also beginner friendly. But if you have any question, please also leave your question at the comment section. So for the monostrap part or the strap of the dress, we're going to do that when we're actually sewing the dress. So next we are going to move over to the back pattern. So now before we start marking the front pattern of this dress, I'm going to go ahead to mark out the zipper first because I like using one pattern for both the front and the back pattern of my skirt. So for the zipper allowance, I used 1.5 inches. Now you want to place your tape back from your waist and you're going to mark the length of the dress you want to make. So the length of the dress I want is a bit short, that is 35, then adding 2 inches for folding allowance, that's 37. But while marking this, I changed my mind and I decided to just use 1 inch for the turn up allowance. And after that, I'll just go ahead to draw a straight line at that point. And after drawing that out, I'll go ahead to cut out the excess I have on the lower part of the pattern. So before cutting out, I'll go ahead to join those lines that I marked for the zipper allowance, which is about 1.5 inches, and then I'll head over to cutting out the excess I have at the lower part of the skirt. So if you're drafting directly on your fabric, you don't need to do this. All you have to do is go ahead to draft your front pattern, place it on the back and add your zipper allowance. So because of I marked out the zipper allowance first, I'll go ahead to fold it inside this way and we'll start marking out our basic measurements. So to start marking our measurement for this dress, I placed my tape from the waistline and I'll mark my hip point, which is 7 inches away from my waistline. So now if you're much taller, you'll be considering using 8 inches away from your waistline. So after that, I'll just go ahead to draw out a straight line at that 7 inches point, which is my hip point. And after marking the hip point of my dress, I'll go ahead to also label it as hip point and here as waistline. So now it's time to insert my body measurement. I'm going to go ahead to mark my waist circumference divided by 4. So for this pattern, we are not using a dart intake at the lower part of the skirt. Whenever I'm making a corset or a bustier, I don't use a dart at the lower part. I'll add 1 inch for sewing allowance. Going over to the hip point, I'll mark my hip circumference divided by 4, which is 40 divided by 4. I have 10 plus 1 inch, making it 11. So whatever I have there, which is 11, I'll take out 2 inches and mark it at the lower part. So at the lower part, I marked 9 inches. So this is to have a fitted effect at the lower part. So after this, I'll just go ahead and I will place my curved drill and I'll connect it all the way to the lower part of my dress. So after I'm done connecting, this is what I have, and I'll go ahead to use my marker to outline this. And after using my marker to outline, I'll go ahead to cut out my skirt pattern. So while cutting my skirt at the hip area, I'll just go in a little because I don't want to have any excess at that point. So after I'm done cutting this, I'll bring out that part that we folded in, which is the zipper allowance. From there, I will come down by ½ inch and I will reconnect it. And from this point also, I'll come in by ½ inch and reconnect. This is to make sure that at the zipper part of the dress, it will relax very well and it will not pop up or have any bulgy effect at that point. So after this, I'll just go ahead to remark my pattern and relabel it. So after I'm done marking this, at this point we are done with the drafting tutorial. So also join us in our next video where we'll be sewing up this pattern. And if you haven't yet subscribed, please hit on the subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and see you in our next video. Thanks.